Oh no, we definitely got footage at the mom's crib. She live in building 18 out here.
It all kicked off when Trippie Redd started throwing threats at 6ix9ine's family. Things didn't stop there, though. Some people swear he crossed a serious line by going after 6ix9ine's girl, Ariella. Now, the word on the street is wild. Rumor has it, 6ix9ine got his payback after catching Trippie off guard in New York. Everything started spinning out of control fast. Let's break it all down. People say Trippie had Ariella taken out as a twisted move in their feud. But to really get why anyone would even think about targeting 6ix9ine through her, we gotta rewind to the early SoundCloud days, the mid-2000s, when this whole rivalry started brewing. Back then, the underground rap game was blowing up online, and both 6ix9ine and Trippie were climbing the same ladder. They had matching vibes, wild hair colors.
This is that crazy. This is that same 6ix9ine. Yo, babe, look at
It is 6ix9ine. It's Treyway.
You right, babe. Vibes.
Face tats, and that catchy melodic trap sound that was shaking up the whole internet. Both were signed to 10K projects, working side by side, pushing each other's names higher and higher. Their collab on Polls 1469 in 2017 wasn't just a track, it was a moment. They looked like real friends on the come up, moving as a team and taking over the game together. But that's where things slowly started to twist into chaos. Their collab showed real chemistry. Trippie's smooth, melodic flow mixing perfectly with 6ix9ine's wild, aggressive energy. Fans couldn't get enough of it. Back then, they were locked in tight.
I bet if 6ix9ine would have gave me a win, I would have win.
Sharing studio sessions, boosting each other's songs, and moving like real brothers, fighting to make it out together. But this is where things took a sharp turn, and it's the key to understanding how their friendship flipped into one of the nastiest feuds in hip-hop. Years later, everything started crumbling, and it all came down to women. Word is, 6ix9ine couldn't keep away from Trippie's girl. But here's where things really get messy. There's actual footage that hints at 6ix9ine's habit of targeting his rivals through the women around them. One clip shows him with Trippie's ex, Alex, and he's clearly showing off the relationship just to throw shade at Trippie.
Everybody said your part of the song was...
But that's your biggest song. That's your biggest song. That's your biggest song. That's your biggest song.
It's not my biggest song.
Yeah, it is.
My biggest songs are Love Scars, Love, Dark Knight.
This wasn't about romance. It was straight up mind games. A calculated move meant to humiliate Trippie and crush his pride in front of the whole hip-hop scene. You can even hear 6ix9ine and LX talking trash about Trippie in the clip, laughing like they wanted the world to see it. That kind of stuff cuts deep. Now picture this, Trippie watching his former friend parade around with his ex online, mocking him for everyone to see. That's not just disrespect, that's personal. In a culture where respect means everything, that kind of public humiliation can't just slide. It eats away at you day after day until it's no longer just beef. It's something way more dangerous. 6ix9ine wasn't just taking shots at Trippie's pride, he was trying to crush his manhood right in front of millions of people. This wasn't some small-time argument, it was a full-blown personal attack. And the thing about this kind of deep street beef, it doesn't just fade away. When someone embarrasses you like that, especially over your woman, that's not something you can just walk off. That's pure disrespect, and in that world, disrespect screams for payback. Even Trippie's own crew would bring up the 6ix9ine and girlfriend situation just to mess with him, poking at that raw nerve, knowing it would set him off every single time. That's the kind of anger that doesn't die down. It just sits there, waiting for a moment to explode.
When he hears the phone ring, I walk out because now I'm about to get into a deep conversation with Jay to front like, why'd you block my number? But the whole time I just wanted his phone to go through his phone. When I go to the other room, I swipe up, I go to the text messages, and I put Sarah, my baby mom's number in. First message I see.
Wow.
Why'd you hang up on me? Call me after you done running. You still with that? Yo, like, call me back.
And in the streets, where both these guys had ties, payback never has an expiration date. People started whispering that Trippie might have played a part in what happened to Ariella, all because of how crazy their feud had gotten. This wasn't just rap beef anymore, it was layered with gang connections that made things way more dangerous. Trippie was tight with the Crips, while 6ix9ine had ties with the 9 Trey Bloods, and those weren't just for image. Those were real affiliations with real loyalty and real expectations to retaliate when disrespected. Their twisted pattern of going after each other's women women became their main weapon. It wasn't about love, it was about control, ego, and hitting your enemy where it hurt most. Every time they pulled a stunt like that, it added another scar to the feud, and it all played out in public, on social media, with millions watching their every move. Their back and forth became headline material, feeding the drama nonstop. But while it kept their names buzzing in the rap game, it also made their personal hatred impossible to hide. Everybody could see it, raw and real, turning their rivalry into something that felt way too personal. By this point, the whole world knew Trippie Redd and 6ix9ine didn't just dislike each other.
I said, when did it start? She said, yo. She said, remember that time you called me from jail and said you needed a lawyer, June 16th?
I'm sorry, y'all.
I swear to God. And I called her, she said, Shotty took me to get the lawyer. After we went to the lawyer, he took me to a spa downtown Manhattan.
They truly despised one another. By 2025, plenty of time had passed for someone to plan something heavy, but not enough time for that old hate to fade away. Trippie had stacked up fame, money, and respect, but deep down, the humiliation 6ix9ine put him through in the early days was still eating at him like a wound that never healed. Revenge doesn't always fade, it festers. Sometimes the longer it sits, the stronger it burns. And then there's Ariella. She had already been dragged into the danger once before, just because she was linked to 6ix9ine. Back in 2018, she was taken by 9 Trey members who thought she was one of his girls. Proof that being close to him came with serious risks. People knew she was connected to 6ix9ine, and that made her a target for anyone trying to hurt him where it hurt most. The sad truth, surviving that first incident didn't make her safer. It made her more vulnerable. Word was, she knew too much, saw too much, and that alone painted a target on her back. So when news broke that Ariella was found in her car on August 17, 2025, everyone knew it wasn't random. Police quickly confirmed it was a calculated attack, carefully planned, executed with precision, not some spur-of-the-moment street crime. Everything about it pointed to serious coordination, something only someone with power, money, and connections could pull off. And that's what got people talking about Trippie's possible involvement. His gang ties, his access, and his long-standing grudge against 6ix9ine made the theory sound all too believable. It fit perfectly. Trippie couldn't touch 6ix9ine directly, not with him likely under protection and moving quiet, so the only way to get even was to hit where it would hurt the most. Going after someone close to 6ix9ine would have hit just as hard, maybe even harder, while being way easier and safer to pull off. In that world, targeting a loved one to get revenge is nothing new. It's a cold, calculated move meant to send a message loud and clear without ever facing your enemy head on.
When he hits the U-turn, we get hit by a car from the back. Boom! I'm in the passenger seat, Jorge's driving. When I see a guy coming with a big gun, just like hoodied on, running towards my door, my heart dropped to my ass.
For Trippie, setting something like that in motion would have ticked every box. It would have torn 6ix9ine apart emotionally, proved that Trippie could still touch him even through all that protection, and served as payback for years of public embarrassment. And the crazy part, Ariella had been around 6ix9ine's world for years. She popped up in his videos, was active in his circle online, and everyone knew her connection to him. That made her the perfect target, close enough to sting, but not guarded enough to be safe. Her presence in his orbit made it inevitable that any harm done to her would hit 6ix9ine right in the chest. And since she wasn't heavily protected, whoever planned it knew they could get close without drawing too much attention. Add up all the pieces. The long-running hate between Trippie and 6ix9ine, their history of going after each other's women, Trippie's gang connections that gave him access to people who could make moves like this, and Ariella's past run-ins that already had her name floating around, suddenly the theory doesn't sound so far-fetched. The streets never forget, especially not when someone's pride has been shattered in front of millions. In that world, respect isn't just a word, it's everything. And when a man feels disrespected like that, sometimes...
At this point, I'm snitch ready. You know what I'm trying to say? So a lot of people don't know this. I was snitching before I got locked up. But it wasn't official till I got locked up because I had to sign papers.
Revenge becomes the only way he thinks he can reclaim his power. Payback was always bound to happen. It was never a matter of if, only when, and who would end up paying the price. Sadly, Ariella became the one caught in the crossfire of a grudge that refused to die. Her loss might have been Trippie's way of closing a chapter that had haunted him for years. Proof that in the rap world, some rivalries go way beyond lyrics and fame. Sometimes, innocent people get pulled into the storm just because they're standing too close to the wrong person. But here's the twist. While Trippie's anger gave him a powerful motive, he wasn't the only one with reasons to want revenge.
Right now, during those 47 years that I would have been serving. I'm 24. I haven't even lived 47 years of my life.
Right.
You're not checking on my mom. You're not paying nothing for my daughter. You're not doing anything for me. You're not even wondering if I'm calling somebody or not.
6ix9ine made enemies everywhere. From the streets to the studio, from fans to former friends, his list of rivals just kept getting longer. The story behind what happened to Ariella goes way deeper than just Trippie and 6ix9ine's toxic feud. It ties into all the betrayal and chaos that had surrounded 6ix9ine for years. To really understand how dangerous it had become to even be connected to him by 2025, you've got to look at the chain of backstabbing that tore his world apart from the inside.
Hey, listen, I don't give a if I'm held accountable for what I did. Yes, I snitched, and I did it proudly, right? But everybody who snitches, everybody should be held accountable. Because you can't single someone out.
His downfall didn't start because of outsiders. It came from his own people. Between 2017 and 2018, the cracks started to show, and the people he trusted most were the ones secretly setting him up. This wasn't about music beefs or creative drama. It was way more personal. These were betrayals that cut deep, from friends who turned greedy, partners who flipped on him, and crew members who saw a chance to profit off his chaos. They were supposed to be loyal, but they were plotting behind the scenes, playing both sides and leaving him exposed to enemies he didn't even see coming. Those same betrayals created bitter rivals who carried grudges for years, waiting for their moment to strike. And by the time 2025 came around, 6ix9ine's circle wasn't just broken, it was poisoned. Anyone connected to him, even from the sidelines like Ariella, was living in a danger zone without even realizing it. The first major betrayal came from the one person 6ix9ine thought he could trust the most, his manager and right-hand man, Kafano Shotty Jordan. While 6ix9ine was out there hustling, making hits and juggling his feud with Trippie, Shotty was busy stabbing him in the back in the most personal way imaginable. This wasn't some minor slip-up or friendly fallout, this was betrayal on a level that cut deep. And it didn't just break 6ix9ine emotionally, it created another dangerous rival who knew everything about him. Shotty wasn't just a manager, he was inside the circle, handling the money, the shows, and all the behind-the-scenes moves. That meant when things went sour, he had every reason and every resource to come after 6ix9ine hard. This wasn't about love triangles or petty relationship drama. It was about dominance and manipulation. Shotty was quietly tearing down 6ix9ine's personal life while smiling in his face, all to keep control and power over him. And the worst part? It all went down while 6ix9ine was distracted, trying to handle music deals, keep his image alive, and fight off public controversies. That made the betrayal feel even colder, like it was planned from the start. But what really takes it to another level is when it all began. The affair kicked off at the exact moment when 6ix9ine was at his weakest, surrounded by chaos, drowning in drama, and trusting the wrong people. That timing wasn't random, it was strategic, perfectly placed to hit him where it would hurt the most. Shotty saw 6ix9ine's arrest and vulnerability as his big opening, and he wasted no time moving in. Using the excuse of helping Sarah get him a lawyer, he slowly got closer to her, using sympathy as a mask for his real intentions. Before long, he had crossed every line, turning what looked like support into full-blown manipulation. This wasn't some impulsive move. It was cold, calculated, and shows just how far Shotty was willing to go to gain control over 6ix9ine's life. When 6ix9ine finally learned about the affair, everything collapsed. Cutting Shotty off didn't just mean losing a manager, it meant creating a serious enemy who knew everything about him. Shotty had been there for every deal, every secret conversation, every personal moment. He knew 6ix9ine's money flow, his weak spots, his circle, and every part of his daily life. That kind of insider knowledge in the wrong hands, that's a ticking time bomb. Having someone like Shotty turn into a rival wasn't just emotional, it was a real threat. With that much dirt and access, he could ruin 6ix9ine's career or worse, expose things that could put him in danger. And while that betrayal was still burning, things were breaking down even more between 6ix9ine and the 9 Trey gangsters. At first, that crew welcomed him in with open arms. His fame and success brought serious money and exposure to the set, and everyone was eating good. But as his fame grew, so did the jealousy, greed, and tension. What started as a partnership started turning toxic. People wanted control of the cash, the clout, and the power that came with 6ix9ine's name. The tension inside 9 Trey came to a boiling point between Shotty and Anthony Harv Ellison, a high-ranking member who also worked as 6ix9ine's bodyguard. Harv wasn't feeling how 6ix9ine was moving. He thought the rapper was clowning the gang lifestyle, taking all the perks without putting in the real work or facing the real risks. To Harv, 6ix9ine was making the gang look like a joke, and that disrespect wasn't something he could just ignore. Between Shotty's betrayal and Harv's growing resentment, 6ix9ine's world was turning into a minefield. Everyone close to him had their own agenda, and he was too distracted to see the danger closing in from every direction. Harv saw 6ix9ine as a fake, someone flashing gang ties for street cred without ever really living that life. That resentment didn't just simmer. It exploded in July 2018 when 6ix9ine was kidnapped by his own crew. The same people who were supposed to protect him ended up turning on him in one of the most shocking betrayals in rap history. It was the moment that showed everyone just how dangerous and unpredictable his world had become. According to reports, the kidnapping was pulled off by Anthony Harv Ellison and Aljamiah Nuke Mac, both members of the 9 Trey set. They ambushed 6ix9ine, forced him into a car, and made him give up his loyalty to the gang on camera. On top of that, they stripped him of hundreds of thousands worth of jewelry just to prove a point. But this wasn't about money. It was about power, control, and humiliation. Harv and Nuke wanted to remind 6ix9ine that no matter how rich or famous he got, he was still under their thumb. They wanted the world to see that fame didn't make him untouchable. That video wasn't just a threat, it was a statement. That night changed everything. The kidnapping didn't just leave physical scars, it sparked new wars. Once 6ix9ine decided to testify against Ellison and Mac, both men ended up facing decades behind bars, and that decision sent shockwaves through their families, friends, and the entire 9 Trey network. Suddenly, 6ix9ine wasn't just an ex-member, he was a marked man. Every corner of that world had someone who felt betrayed, someone who wanted payback, and someone watching for the right chance to make their move. When 6ix9ine decided to cooperate with the feds, everything changed. He didn't just make a few enemies, he created an entire army of them. It wasn't only the guys he testified against, it was everyone tied to the 9 Trey network who felt like his cooperation had brought heat straight to their doorstep. His testimony laid out the gang's business in the open, exposing details that led to a wave of arrests and convictions that tore their structure apart. Each time someone got locked up because of what 6ix9ine said, another person on the outside took it personally. Every conviction meant another family angry, another friend plotting revenge, another set of eyes watching him. His decision to turn witness didn't just shake the streets, it broke a code that people in that world live and die by. And the street code isn't the only thing that came for him. The culture did too. Major voices in hip-hop started speaking out, dragging his name through the mud. Legends like Snoop Dogg and Meek Mill publicly called him out, straight up labeling him a rat and saying anyone who crossed paths with him had every reason to move against him. When icons say things like that, it sends a clear message. 6ix9ine wasn't just disliked, he was open season. That kind of public condemnation doesn't just hurt your image, it paints a target on your back. Suddenly, 6ix9ine had danger closing in from every direction. From rival gangs still bitter about the courtroom fallout, to the streets that saw him as a symbol of betrayal, everyone had a reason to want a piece of him. You had people like Trippie Redd, driven by humiliation and pride, still holding grudges from years back. You had former allies like Shotty, who felt betrayed and cut out after giving him everything. All these enemies came from different corners, but they shared one goal: to make 6ix9ine pay for crossing lines that, in their world, can't ever be uncrossed. You had gang members furious over being exposed who wanted street justice. And you had gatekeepers of the culture who saw 6ix9ine as the ultimate violation of hip-hop's code. But here's where it gets truly dangerous for innocent people like Ariella. When someone has that many enemies from that many directions, the threat doesn't just stop with them. Everyone in their circle becomes a possible target. Studies and real-life cases have shown that people connected to high-profile figures often face serious risks, even when they have nothing to do with the original drama. It's not just about one group coming after you. It's about danger coming from every angle, all at once. And Ariella's situation was the perfect example of that terrifying reality. Back in 2018, she had already been taken by 9 Trey members who thought she was romantically tied to 6ix9ine. That showed just how many people knew about her connection to him and how willing they were to use her as a way to hurt him. It wasn't just about sending a message, it was about leverage, about showing that nobody around 6ix9ine was safe. And what's even darker, her survival the first time didn't make her safer. It made her more of a target. She had seen too much, heard too much, and her existence alone became a risk to the people who had been involved. To them, she wasn't just a woman. They saw her as a loose end, a witness, someone who could bring real trouble if she ever talked. By this point, 6ix9ine's world was tangled in a web of enemies, each one from a different side. You had old rivals like Trippie Redd still carrying grudges, ex-associates like Shotty who felt betrayed, gang members furious over jail time, and even cultural figures who wanted to erase his name from hip-hop. Every one of them had their own reason to want him hurt, but they all knew one thing: going after 6ix9ine himself was risky. Targeting someone close to him, that was easier, quieter, and just as effective. The betrayals that tore apart his inner circle didn't just destroy his trust. They made everyone around him fair game in a world where revenge never really ends. All those betrayals, broken bonds, and power plays didn't just hurt 6ix9ine's career, they created a long list of enemies who never forgot. These weren't people who let things slide. They were the type to wait for years, watching, plotting, and waiting for the right moment to strike. And when that revenge finally showed itself through what happened to Ariella, it felt like the grand finale of every bad decision, every loyalty lost, and every snake move that had been building up around him. By the time Ariella's life was taken, the real question wasn't if someone wanted to hurt 6ix9ine through her, it was who finally decided to act. He had so many enemies from so many corners that her fate could have been sealed by any one of them. Every rival had their own reason to make him feel pain. Some wanted revenge, others wanted respect, and a few just wanted to send a message that the streets don't forget. 6ix9ine's own circle had turned into a breeding ground for danger. The betrayals, the snitching, the public humiliation, all of it stacked up until there was no separating him from the chaos he'd created. Anyone tied to him, even loosely, was living with a target on their back. And when that violence finally caught up to Ariella, it proved something chilling. The consequences of betrayal in that world don't fade with time. They linger, waiting until someone finally pays the price. And that's exactly what happened on August 17th, 2025. The streets came to collect on debts that 6ix9ine thought were long gone. His past didn't just catch up, it slammed into him full force. Ariella Lotta Polanco was found inside her car on the Cross County Parkway in Mount Vernon, New York, struck multiple times in what police confirmed was a carefully executed hit. It was a message, loud and clear. The street world never forgets, and when payback comes, it doesn't miss. The way Ariella was taken out sent a loud, chilling message. 6ix9ine's enemies were still out there, still furious, and still willing to strike hard to settle old grudges. Police confirmed right away that this wasn't random. No robbery, no accident. It was targeted, deliberate, and pulled off with a level of precision that screamed professional. Whoever did it had serious resources, serious connections, and a mission. To remind everyone that crossing the wrong people comes with a price. That message couldn't be clearer. Being linked to 6ix9ine wasn't just risky, it was downright dangerous. Anyone connected to him was living in the shadow of his choices, never knowing when the next strike might come or from which direction. But to really grasp why Ariella became a target, you've got to zoom out and look at the bigger picture. How 6ix9ine's decision to cooperate with federal prosecutors back in 2019 reshaped his entire world. When he flipped and started talking, he didn't just protect himself, he created a ripple effect of chaos around everyone he knew. His cooperation might have saved his freedom, but it marked everyone in his orbit with that same label of betrayal. It made it easy for his enemies to go after the people he cared about, knowing it would hurt him without ever having to face him directly. In the streets, there's one label worse than any insult, and that's rat. Once you get that tag, there's no shaking it. It becomes your legacy, your curse, and your death sentence all in one. By testifying against his former crew, 6ix9ine earned that mark forever, and the streets never forgive that kind of move. Even the culture turned its back on him. Major names, Snoop Dogg, Meek Mill, 50 Cent, all publicly called him out, blasting him and making it clear that he broke the code. In hip-hop terms, that's like a public bounty. When legends openly condemn you, it signals to everyone that you're fair game. That cultural backlash turned into something much darker, a green light that said, go ahead, make an example out of him or anyone connected to him. The hate, the resentment, and the anger towards 6ix9ine had built an atmosphere where violence wasn't just expected, it was approved. And tragically, Ariella ended up paying the price for a war she never started, caught in the storm that never stopped following him. By this point, violence towards 6ix9ine or anyone in his circle wasn't just accepted, it was almost expected. When respected voices in hip-hop start publicly questioning your manhood, calling you a traitor, and labeling you as the ultimate sellout, it sends a clear message to the streets. Coming after you or your people isn't just justified, it's something that could earn stripes and boost someone's credibility. That kind of talk doesn't fade. It fuels the fire, turning rumors into motivation. But the danger that surrounded Ariella didn't come from just one direction. It came from everywhere. She was caught in the middle of all the different enemies 6ix9ine had created during his wild, controversial rise. There was the old, personal beef with Trippie Redd, still simmering with years of humiliation and pride, that gave one possible motive for what happened to her. Then, there were the betrayals within 6ix9ine's own circle. The drama with Shotty, the tension with the 9 Trey members, and the infamous kidnapping that exposed just how fractured his world had become. And on top of all that, his cooperation with federal prosecutors added another dangerous layer, one that made everyone even remotely connected to him a potential target. Once 6ix9ine turned on his old crew, the street saw him and anyone near him as fair game. When Ariella's death hit the news, social media went into overdrive. People started posting wild theories, asking questions like, did they do it because she was 6ix9ine's girl? And others saying that being close to him was basically a death sentence. It didn't take long for the internet to connect her tragedy to his name because honestly, every theory made sense. He had too many enemies, too many reasons, and too many people who wanted revenge. And what makes her story especially heartbreaking is that this wasn't her first brush with danger. Back in 2018, she had already been kidnapped by 9 Trey members who mistook her for one of 6ix9ine's girlfriends. That alone should have been a warning sign that being connected to him came with serious risks. But despite surviving that first nightmare, the danger never really left her. It just waited for the right time to strike again. Ariella didn't choose the spotlight, but once her name got tied to his, she became part of the chaos that followed him everywhere. And in the end, that connection proved to be more dangerous than anyone could have imagined. The fact that Ariella survived that first kidnapping didn't make her safe. It made her even more of a target. She had witnessed real criminal activity up close, seen faces, heard things, and that meant she could become a threat to the very people who had once gone after her. In the streets, that kind of survival can make you a liability, not a miracle. Those who get too close to secrets often end up paying for it later. That 2018 incident should have been the biggest wake-up call for everyone in 6ix9ine's circle. It was proof that being tied to him wasn't just risky, it was life-threatening. But instead of stepping back, the people around him seemed to accept it like it was just another part of the game. The chaos, the violence, the constant tension, it all became normal. And that normalization is what probably kept Ariella in his orbit even when it was clear the danger was never going away. 6ix9ine's choice to testify and cut ties with his old crew was a move he made to save himself, to keep his freedom and his life from being taken by the very people he once called brothers. From his perspective, it made sense. Why stay loyal to those who had already turned on him? Why take decades in prison for people who were plotting behind his back? But what 6ix9ine didn't fully grasp was how far the fallout from that decision would spread. His actions didn't just protect him, they put everyone around him in the crosshairs. People like Ariella, who had no part in the snitching, no say in his choices, ended up paying the price for decisions they never made. In trying to save himself, 6ix9ine might have set off a chain reaction that cost innocent lives. And that's the harsh truth about that world. Your choices don't just follow you, they haunt everyone who stands beside you. The cruel twist in 6ix9ine's story is that while his cooperation with the feds kept him out of a long prison sentence, it built a permanent storm of danger that followed him everywhere he went. His choice to save himself came with a price, a life where paranoia became routine, and everyone close to him carried a shadow of that same danger. His enemies couldn't touch him directly. He had money, security, and maybe even quiet federal protection watching his back. But the people around him, they didn't have that kind of shield, and that made them easy targets. Hurting those close to him became the smarter way to send a message. It was the perfect hit. No need to chase the untouchable when you can strike the ones he loves and still make him feel every bit of the pain. That's the brutal math of street revenge. It's never about who's easiest to hate. It's about who's easiest to reach. Even though some people respected his blunt honesty, 6ix9ine's open defense of his decision to cooperate with law enforcement kept the wounds fresh. Every interview where he bragged about not caring what people thought, every post where he acted untouchable, it all reminded his enemies that he broke the code. Every time he spoke, it was like poking at a wound that had never healed. And since going after him directly was risky and complicated, targeting someone like Ariella started looking like the next best option. It was personal, it was symbolic, and it was safe for whoever wanted revenge. Taking aim at her meant hitting him emotionally without facing his walls of security or legal protection. When investigators dug into Ariella's case, they uncovered multiple leads and possible motives. Some reports hinted that jealousy or personal drama might have played a role, that maybe her connection to someone else stirred trouble of its own. But no matter what the reason, her link to 6ix9ine always hung in the background, impossible to ignore. Whether it was about love, loyalty, or revenge, her tragedy became another reminder of how deep the danger ran for anyone who dared to stay close to him. The fact that there were so many possible explanations for Ariella's death only proved one thing. 6ix9ine's world had become pure chaos, dangerous for anyone who stepped too close. Every theory, every rumor, every whispered name showed just how deep the danger ran around him. When news of her death broke, 6ix9ine's reaction made it clear she wasn't just another name in his story. She meant something to him. His public tributes were emotional. He called her a tremendous woman and spoke about her like she was family. You could hear the pain in his words. It felt real, raw, and heavy. But beneath the grief, there was something else. A haunting reminder of what his choices had cost not just him, but everyone connected to him. Ariela Mejia Polanco's murder wasn't just another headline or another tragedy in hip-hop. It was a brutal symbol of what happens when the street code comes back to collect. 6ix9ine broke the unspoken rules that have defined street life for generations. Loyalty, silence, and honor above all. He didn't just bend those rules, he shattered them. And while he walked free, others were left to pay the price for his decision to cooperate. The code might not have been enforced directly on him, but the message was delivered loud and clear through Ariela's fate. The streets had found a way to settle the score by hitting someone he cared about, someone innocent, someone who couldn't fight back. She wasn't built for that world. She wasn't a gangster. She wasn't chasing clout. She was just caught in the orbit of someone whose past never stopped spinning. She couldn't call on bodyguards or federal protection. She couldn't pay lawyers to shield her from enemies she didn't even know existed. She was blindsided by the same dangers that 6ix9ine had tried to outrun for years. Ariela's death became more than a tragedy. It became a warning, a cold reminder that being close to 6ix9ine comes with a permanent risk that never goes away. The danger doesn't fade. It doesn't wait. It's always there, lurking, ready to strike from directions no one ever sees coming. Whether Ariela's killer was Trippie Redd finally getting his personal revenge, members of 9 Trey settling old scores over the snitching fallout, or maybe even someone from 6ix9ine's former circle like Shaky coming back for payback, or a mix of all of them working together behind the scenes, the outcome was still the same. An innocent woman lost her life because she was tied to a man whose past was filled with too many betrayals, too many grudges, and way too many enemies to ever stay hidden. 6ix9ine's choices created ripples that never stopped spreading, and Ariela ended up caught in the middle of that never-ending storm. By the end, it didn't matter who pulled the strings. What mattered was the message. The streets had spoken, and the cost of 6ix9ine's past finally landed on someone who didn't deserve it. That's the cold reality of that world. When your name carries that kind of history, anyone connected to you can end up paying the price. Ariela's death became the final chapter in a story built on betrayal, revenge, and choices that couldn't be undone. Her tragedy is a reminder that even when you think the past is behind you, it's never really gone. It's just waiting for the right moment to strike. And that's a wrap. If you made it this far, hit that subscribe button, like, share, and drop a comment below about what you think really happened. Do you believe it was Trippie, the 9 Trey crew, or someone else entirely? Let's hear your thoughts. And as always, thanks for watching. Catch you in the next video.